Joining us now, Scott Taylor, running for Congress in the 2nd District in Virginia. That'll be decided not by a convention, which I hate, but thanks to the leaders in the 2nd District, this will be decided by an old-fashioned primary where you have to go vote. And that'll be on July 23rd. If you don't want to go out and vote, you can get an absentee ballot, the real way, where you go online or you call in, you get the absentee ballot, you fill it out, you mail it in, right? That's the way it's supposed to be done. You can certainly do that. It's June 23rd, so it's been put off 2 weeks. June 23rd, that'll be the primary. There's several candidates in the race, two main ones, Scott Taylor and Ben Loyola. Scott with a big lead. Disclaimer, also we have endorsed Scott Taylor, I have, and so I think he's the best candidate to go up against Elaine Luria and win the seat back, and he's with us now. Scott, great to have you.
John, good morning from beautiful Virginia Beach. I hope that you and your listeners are doing fantastic.
We're doing better than the shop owners, Scott, at Virginia Beach. The governor said he doubts it'll be open by Memorial Day. What happens to all these business owners on the strip there, Virginia Beach, on the beach front? They own hotels, restaurant shops. I mean, if the beach isn't open in the summer, they're all filing for bankruptcy. Does the governor have a clue?
You know, it's interesting. You know, I know business owners that were on his advisory council, and they were shocked and surprised about when his press conference came out last week. But gym owners, restaurateurs, folks in the tourism industry, which are, you know, we're getting pummeled down here. You know, when the governor came out, what was it, a month and a half ago, and he shut down Virginia till June 10th, which was farther than any state and country that I'm aware of at that time. And clearly, most prudent and rational people were saying, leaders were saying, we're going to look at the evidence, we're going to look at the data, and we'll adjust accordingly. And so he effectively killed the tourism season here from Memorial Day weekend, and that's devastating to our folks that are in the tourism industry. And as you know very well, John, it's one of our main industries here. And, I mean, people are hurting. My heart goes out to everybody out there, and I'm getting contacted almost daily from friends who are in this industry, business owners, and they're very upset, and they should be.
Well,
let me think about this, John. You know, I think it's incredible that a government is going to say, "You, John Fredericks, you are non-essential. Your livelihood, your life's work, maybe 20 years in a business, feeding your family is non-essential." That's incredible to me in America. It should be. If anything, governor says, okay, you operate, you just got to meet this certain safety standard. Okay, cool. But to say that you're non-essential, anyone's non-essential, to me is incredibly wrong.
It's been reported that two people in Virginia Beach that were on his advisory committee, or whatever you want to call them, the Open Virginia Committee or the Planning Committee, they were never consulted. In fact, and he said, I had consulted with everybody, and this is the consensus. And they said, I was never consulted. I don't know what he's talking about. So he has a committee to just say he has it, makes up stuff, says he consulted with them and didn't.
Well, I'll give you another example of a gym owner that I know who was on the board, and it was never talked about, never, according to him, that you would have outside classes at a gym. You know, like you have to stay closed down at any gym unless you have outside classes. That's not at all what was discussed, according to him. According to him, what was discussed was reduced capacity. Okay, open it back up, 50% capacity. I mean, gyms are, you know, they have a vested interest, obviously, to be clean and clean the machines and all that stuff. I mean, everyone wants to protect themselves and their clients, of course. Otherwise, they're screwed, right, business-wise. So I have confidence in individuals, Virginians, and confidence in business owners that they're going to do what's best for their businesses and for their customers. And so, yes, you know, this guy said that he was consulted. However, what actually happened, the decision that was made by the governor, was never even talked about by gym owners, which is incredible.
So, and then he says you can go outside. So let me get this straight. So if you have facilities outside, you can go outside. I guess that means you can now go to a playground, but you can't go to the beach, which is outside.
I'm on the beach right now. I'm walking, having my coffee, and talking to you right now on the beach. But what's crazy is I can go to Trader Joe's and stand 6 feet from people outside for 20 minutes as they let people in the door, but I can't come to the beach and sit and read a book, like away from everybody. It's the dumbest thing
insane
in the world. I mean, the reality is the governor keeps saying on all his conferences, we're going to continue to make decisions with science and data, yet there's no science and data that says that there's outbreaks or, this thing is cases are coming from the beach, from people, I have trust in individuals, Virginians, to make sure that they take safety precautions for themselves and their families and others, Now, some people, and so the argument that I've heard from some folks, and everyone looks at this through a partisan lens, unfortunately, and they'll say, well, some people will be irresponsible. Well, I'm like, okay, well, we're in a free society. I mean, in a free society, yeah, some people will rob a bank. Some people will murder someone, unfortunately. But that's the balance that you create living in a free society. Could I put you in a box, 4x4 box for the next 2 years and feed you through a tube and keep you real safe? Sure. But what kind of life is that? So I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that we can come together as Virginians and make sure that we're protecting the most vulnerable. You said this earlier on your show at the start of this segment. It's very clear that this disease and this virus is contagious, but it's also clear based on the data, not the models, that it really affects a certain demographic. Okay, well, let's protect them, and let's do everything we can to make sure that they're protected at the same time, making sure that folks can run the economy, because without an economy, then you don't have, you're creating way more problems. Postponing elective surgeries, people checking to see if they have cancer or not, depression, overdoses, child abuse, domestic abuse. Like this is create some of the decisions by politicians, to include our own governor. I mean, they're creating way more problems. So I'm confident in individual Virginians and businesses that we can come together and do what's best to keep the most vulnerable amongst us protected, while opening up, while creating economic activity and moving forward with their lives. We can't just huddle in place and be scared to live.
You essentially want Virginia Beach open on Memorial Day, right?
I do, but again, I don't think anybody or business is non-essential. I would never say that to someone, because everyone's essential in their own life and their own businesses. If based on science and data and guidelines, I would just put in these guidelines and say, hey, look, you need to meet these specific guidelines in your business right now for this certain amount of time, and we're going to adjust it based on science and data and not based on politics. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're really seeing with the governor. I can't believe it's not a regional approach. You talked about Tennessee just a second ago. I mean, think about our Virginians, our fellow Virginians in Bristol, who are dying on the vine. Meanwhile, they can jump over the Tennessee line and they're thriving.
I mean, it's real. It's just ridiculous, because I was in Bristol Friday afternoon, and I stopped. Got to go from Nashville to back home. I drove. You have to go through Bristol, and so I made sure I stopped to eat just before I got over the Virginia line, which was like a mile away. I mean, I stopped and ate and went to IHOP or whatever. It was open. I ate. Soon as I get over the line, you can't go in. I mean, this whole thing is asinine.
I mean,
but I tell you,
the mortality rates for the demographics, and 50 or 60% of the deaths in Virginia are from senior centers, right? Whether it's nursing homes or assisted living. I mean, right. Why aren't we surging resources there and make sure that our most vulnerable are protected? The governor's talking about testing, yet he's like 49th or something, maybe even 50th now in testing. And one of the things that I've actually stepped up to help out with both Centera as well as even the Commonwealth. Why didn't he immediately tap into the private sector? The beauty of America is our robust private sector. Mm-hmm. And yet you're holding these little, show and tell type advisory councils, which we've just established are sort of BS. But if you need testing, then tap these companies we have world-class logistical companies in Virginia who have supplied military and government for years, mm-hmm. and have supply chains and understand how to actually get things done, like Regulus Global, who I helped out, who landed they're now around 200 tons of PPE that they have landed in this country to supply our hospital systems and stuff like that. And that's the private sector. Like, tap them, and you need testing. You want to be, you're talking about opening and your metrics to test, yet you fail to find testing, even though they're available. Look at Governor Larry Hogan. Look, the problem with some of these Democrat governors is they're just blaming the federal government. The federal government's a backstop in a pandemic. They, in a natural disaster, they can surge resources to a certain locality or certain area, like Puerto Rico, hurricane. But in this type of thing, it's very clear that the Governors Association has put out memos for years. Like, you need to also make sure your state is good to go. And the thing is, like, be resourceful. Don't just blame the federal government if you're not getting what you need. Tap the private sector, find those tests, find those PPE, get them here, and get them to the people who need them the most in Virginia. And you're not seeing that. You're just seeing a lack of leadership and a blaming for the federal government. But the blaming's coming from Democrat governors like him and Pritzker in Illinois and Cuomo and like other folks like Larry Hogan are being resourceful and getting stuff done for their people, which is real leadership.
I'm not a Hogan fan, but I see what you're saying. Hogan still hasn't determined when he's going to open his state up, and has actually said that maybe he'll think about it in the next week or so, and maybe allow somebody to make a living and feed their children. You know what I want Larry Hogan to do, Scott? I want him to fix my damn pothole and pick up my trash. That's what I want Larry Hogan to do. Let's get to your campaign.
Well, I just want to say, let me say one thing, John. I'm only speaking specifically about that testing. If he needed testing and he was able to get testing for his people and not just complain about it. I'm not endorsing any of his other policies. I'm just talking about.
No, I get it. I get it.
Example.
I just thought that the statement he made on Thursday, I think, that he would be thinking about maybe open to a date where people could go back to work, maybe if he was in a good mood that day. The arrogance of these governors with this power is just unbelievable to me. And we're just sitting around. We're just sitting around saying, okay, Mr. Hogan, I would love to be able to feed my family. I'll come in and kiss your ring and massage your feet or something. I mean, the whole thing to me is gross. Pick my trash up, fix my pothole, get out of my world. But, hey, you know what, Scott,
I agree with that.
We live in a different time. There was a poll that came out today. You were at 63% in the primary, Loyola 17, another gentleman 3%. Tell me about your campaign and where you think you are as it relates to July 23rd.
Well, all I can say is every metric that I know, and I've been in races, a bunch of races before, and winning races, and a couple of losing races too. And, based upon every bit of data that we have, every metric that we see, we're doing fantastic. That being said, we never take the foot off the gas, and we're going to make sure we have a robust turnout on the 23rd to make sure that we win convincingly and move on to the general and win this seat back for Virginians. It's very clear that Elaine Luria is not who she said she was, and exactly who we said she was. She's not a moderate. That's what she ran at. She's not pro-business. She's been feckless in terms of leadership for our district and for Virginia. You haven't even heard about her anywhere lately. She's had her head in the sand, except for when the impeachment happened. But we're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal. Full speed ahead. The campaign is going very well. We're firing on all cylinders, and we think we're going to have a convincing win on the 23rd.
You're in Congress now. What do you think of the next, stimulus bill that is coming out, where Speaker Pelosi has said she's not doing it if there's not money in there for mail-in ballots? What they're now, the new acronym is VBM, vote by mail, like they did in California. Like right now in Virginia, if you want to vote for Scott Taylor on July 23rd, but you don't want to physically go, you have to go through a system to get an absentee ballot. In California, they're just mailing 22 million ballots out to whatever address is on there. Thing is wrought for fraud. How would you respond to that now?
Number one, there are three ways to vote in the primary here, right? You got the in-person on the 23rd at the polling station. You got the in-person absentee at your local registrar's office that you can go to starting last Friday to elections. You can go if you're worried about a crowd on the actual day of election. And then, of course, you have what we've always had, absentee ballots, which you request a ballot via application with a signature. That now, of course, this governor has removed that requirement for the signature. But what that does is create a paper trail, of course. So it's not the same as the Democrats. What they're trying to do with that, just mail out all the ballots, require no signature, require no ID. Have John Fredericks can go to another household and grab the ballots and send them in or not. It's crazy. It's ripe for potential fraud. And what's ironic is there's a special election happening in California right now that the Democrat governor just opened up a precinct in a Democrat district. So they've been talking about only mail-in votes, and they're trying to push that. But yet, when their people were losing in this special election, they open up one and encourage them to come in person. It's so hypocritical and ironic, and they'll do whatever they can to just win elections in power, unfortunately. Let's get to Nancy Pelosi and what she's trying to hold up any kind of stimulus or any kind of bill whatsoever based on this voter. You know, the reality is voting is left up to the states. That's sort of a state 10th Amendment type thing. It's not in the federal government's purview to try to create this system. That's why we have federalism, right? So I think a lot of people in this time are going to revisit the Constitution and go over civic lessons and realize like that she's wrong. She's trying to take more power than she has available to her. And I think even if it did pass, it would be challenged in court. Now, what I'd like to see, because what I'm not seeing is any leadership out of the Democrat-led Congress. They're not showing up. They're staying home. Meanwhile, like we just talked about, like people here in my district who are not getting paid, not getting a paycheck, hurting. Meanwhile, Elaine Luria, Pelosi, all the Congress people are home, not doing anything, and they're getting paid, right? So these decisions and all this rhetoric is all coming from people who are getting paid, staying home, getting paid. They need to be back in Washington. They need to be reappropriating, looking at non-essential spending, just like in your household, in county households, Commonwealth, the budget. The same thing has to happen at the federal level. There's clearly fluff and non-essential spending in there that should be repurposed and used to help get us through this crisis. And you're not seeing that. You're seeing a complete lack of leadership. This is also a time for them to start reorganizing the deliverance of government services. When you look at places like the VA, like when I got there, they were on MS-DOS tech, which is crazy. MS-DOS is an old computer operating system that doesn't have parts anymore. Like the Social Security benefits are still mailing to dead people. Like that stuff they should be using, like private blockchain, using new technologies to be able to deliver government services better, more efficiently, and cheaper. And so you're seeing a complete lack of leadership or action on the Democrat-led Congress, and we need Republicans back in there to actually get work done again.
All right, Scott Taylor, thanks for being with us, and thanks for sharing us your time, your election, July 23rd. Go to, Scott, what's your website?
Scott Taylor 2020. Scott Taylor 2020.